this computer. I need to exit full screen so I can see my notes. Okay, so welcome, and we are working through this, and we may have technical difficulties, but we will do the best we can. So for those of you who are live on the lecture, you're welcome to stop me at any time if you have questions, additional questions. But what I'm going to do is basically kind of go through the questions that were posted on Moodle. Honestly, I had planned to make this about the content, but most of the questions were really about the course structure, and I'm happy to answer those too. So we'll focus on those. I think we have another live question and answer session scheduled for next week as well. So next week, after you've had a little more time to deal with the complex designs course material, there may be more questions that are actually about the course content, and so I'll cover those then. But for now, I'll focus on the course structure as we're transitioning to online and try to address all of your questions. And of course, if you have individual questions, you're welcome to send me an email at any time. If there are like accommodation kind of things that you need, please just let me know and I'm happy to work with you. But as I'm sure you all are, I'm a little overwhelmed by this transition too. So we're trying to work through it together. I may not necessarily have thought of things that you need. So please just let me know. Okay, so in terms of questions, the first, and I try to reorganize them based on the content. So there were a couple of questions about the tests. The tests generally are gonna be the same format as the tests in class. So they'll be primarily multiple choice and a few short answers. I think chapter 10 is actually just multiple choice because there's not really problems to work through. It's more conceptual stuff. But the others each have a few short answers. So for the tests, you know, the in-class tests that we took in the first half of the semester are really a good model of what to expect in the online tests. And the biggest difference, I think, for the tests are that each test now only covers one chapter instead of it covering a bunch of chapters. And I think generally this should help you. I think this should make life a little easier for you. So hopefully that's an advantage. And the tests will not include extra credit. Somebody asked about that. I don't have a ton of extra credit opportunities built in. They were there in the beginning, so if you took advantage of them, great. Now we're trying to kind of pare down assignments to the essentials. So any other questions about the tests? The first two, you don't have a test this week because we're spending 2 weeks on complex designs. So just be aware that you will have one next week. Okay, so the next thing I got a lot of questions about was the assignments. And I didn't understand what the questions were. I didn't understand why there were so many questions, but I think the issue, which I didn't consider when I was planning this, is that the assignments are set up. They're called quizzes in Moodle just because of the format I used. And I guess the implication is, or the consequence of that is that you can only go in and do the quiz once, meaning you have to do the whole assignment in one sitting, which I think some of you were concerned about. So what I did was for each of the assignments that's formatted like a quiz, I posted a Word document of the assignment. So if you want to do it in multiple sittings, if you want to be able to take your time and come back to it the next day, there's now a Word document, so you can go through and do the assignment in the Word document. You still need to copy and paste your answers into the Moodle quiz format by the time the assignment's due, but that way you can work on it and do it in more than one sitting. So I'm hoping that addresses some of the concerns there. So just like your assignments in the first half of the class, you only get one attempt to actually submit them. I'm not going to grade them more than once. And even though Moodle calls it a quiz, if it's labeled as an assignment, if it's not a test, it's counting towards your assignment grade. It's really just about how Moodle processes those types of things. There isn't a time limit. So you can sit down and do it in one sitting, but if your Moodle logs you out or something like that, there's the risk that you could lose your work. So if you want to and you think it's going to take you a while, go ahead and do the assignment in the Word document first and then copy and paste. Just be aware that there's the possibility that there may be some differences in the Word document just the questions might be asked in a slightly different way or broken up in a slightly different way. So make sure that you read the questions carefully. Questions about assignments? I'm hoping that kind of clarifies the concerns that people had about them. All right. Next set of questions was about the final project. There was the assignment for the method section, which was supposed to be due April 3rd, was still up. I've taken that down, so you shouldn't see it anymore. We're gonna just focus on the course content for now, and then the last 2 weeks of class, we will spend only doing the final project. So I'm hoping that what this does is kind of alleviate some of the stress of having to worry about the final project and the course material at the same time. It means the work on the final project is going to be more intense. And so you're going to do a fair bit of writing in the last 2 weeks, but you won't be covering any course content. So I'm really hoping that that helps, makes it easier rather than more difficult for you. So that's my goal. There was one question about talking to your group and figuring out how to do that. I haven't 100% decided, but what I'm leaning towards, and I need to actually look at the data, is just having the entire class analyze one of the constructs. So you'll keep your introductions as they are about your specific construct, but what I'm thinking is that we will have everyone look at one construct, like maybe intelligence, and those will be the only analyses we do. I will walk you through the analyses and the methods via video, and I'll only have to do it once for class. We'll all write up the same method results and discussion section. You'll write it independently, but it'll be the same content, and you'll have a video and possibly a live session if people want it, to guide you through what goes in each of the remaining sections of the paper. So what this means is you can use your group as support. If you need it, you're welcome to contact each other. If you're on the Remind app, I think you can private message each other on there. You could use GroupMe. You could send each other emails. You could have Zoom meetings. We all have access to Zoom, and it's free, so you're welcome to use that too. So if you want to use your group as a support, you can. But I've eliminated the final project presentation, and you're writing your paper on your own. And I think we're going to have the whole class doing the same topic on the final paper. So you should be able to do this independently, and you shouldn't need your group. That being said, if you need to communicate with your group and need my help assisting with that, I'm happy to help with that. So just let me know. Okay. Any other questions about the final project? So again, for now, you can just kind of relax and not think about it until those last 2 weeks of class, when we will focus on that and not be covering any more material. All right, so the next thing I got a couple questions about was the lectures and the lecture format. Somebody asked about the fill in the blank PowerPoint. You're welcome to make your own. I'm not going to paste a separate one, but you can do what I do, which is just delete random sections of the slides if you find that helps you. It's a good exercise in actively engaging with the material. You should be doing that whether we have face-to-face classes or not, but anything you can do to make you actively think rather than just passively reading or taking notes is going to be to your benefit. You could also just take handwritten notes while listening to the lecture or while reading, and that may help you as well. What I have posted in terms of the PowerPoint that I actually posted for you, I posted basically what I do to prepare for class. So you've got the completed PowerPoint, and then the notes at the bottom are basically what I say. And then the video that I posted for this chapter, at least, is kind of a step-by-step of how you should go through these problems. That's going to be what's on the test. That's what's on your assignment. So that's the thing to practice for this section. So for this section, I'm not going to post another video lecture, but my plan for this question and answer session, and the same for the next one, is to cover the content that you need help with. So if you need me to go over something, if there's concepts that you don't understand, if there's specific slides that you feel like you need more on, ask them in next week's question and answer forum, and I will give you basically a mini lecture on those. So I'm not going to do like a full lecture, because normally in class we spend 2 weeks of in-class time on this. So I'm not going to record 6 hours of lectures, but what I will do for next week is, if you have questions or topics that you just need more on, or you want to hear me talk about them, post those and I'll cover them in the live question and answer session. Okay, and somebody asked about kind of the best way to take notes. Generally, I see kind of the audio lecture and the PowerPoints as complementary, so you should read or watch them both and take notes on both. I really recommend taking your own notes, even though I've given you the PowerPoint, so you essentially have it. There's a lot of evidence that when you write things down, you learn them better. So I'd recommend that you take your own notes on the PowerPoints and on the audio lecture, and then you can, compare back to the notes that I've given you. Those kinds of things will really help. Are there any other issues with the lecture or how the content is presented? Okay, I think this is, well, we only have 3 more chapters, but this chapter in particular is a little unique because it's really application based. And so that's going to be the most important part, is knowing how to do it. And so that's what I've tried to focus on with your assignments, as well as the lecture that I posted. Okay. So the only content, I only got 1 content question, but in the future for next week, if we have more content questions, I can show you, I can pull up slides, I can do a screen share. I also think there's like a whiteboard or something that I can draw on. So this is just, you get to see my lovely face, but in the future, if there's more content questions, we have other technologies that we can use so you can see. But the content question that somebody posted was about whether you lose accuracy on a complex design if you're including more than 1 independent variable. And really, having multiple independent variables is advantageous because it makes your independent variable, or makes your results more precise. So for example, if we're testing the effect of gender and attractiveness on perceptions of intelligence, like we would for our final project, we can use that as an example. So it's important to remember that our final project is actually a complex design. Our 2 independent variables are gender and attractiveness. And then, so we're manipulating both of those, and then we're testing the effect on perceptions of something. For this example, we'll use intelligence. So if we get a significant interaction effect, we know that, for example, attractiveness might influence perceptions of women's intelligence, but it might not influence the perceptions of men's intelligence. So we can be really precise about where we see that finding. Likewise, if we don't find an interaction effect, then we might be able to say, for example, that for both men and women, being more attractive makes them more likely to be perceived as intelligent. In contrast, if we just did 1 variable, so if we just did like an independent groups experiment and just manipulated attractiveness and didn't manipulate gender, we wouldn't know whether our findings were true for both men and women or only true for one gender. So we actually get more accurate findings with a complex design than just independent groups design, or with 1 single variable. Okay, I think that should have answered most of the questions. We've still got a couple people who are on this. So does anyone have any other questions or anything else that you want to address? All right, so as people are thinking, feel free to interrupt me. Remember, so tonight, or sorry, on Sunday night, you have your Bold Duke and Demand assignments. You need to read the article and answer the questions about it. And I really encourage you to do the stretching exercises. They're good practice for the kinds of questions I ask on your assignments and I'm going to ask on your test. So make sure to take advantage of those and do those. There's another question and answer session next week. If you need me to talk more about any of the concepts, there's things you don't understand, we'll do it again at 9 a.m. on Friday. So you'll have some time to kind of process the responses before things are due on Sunday night. So I encourage you to really try to get a handle on the material this week. Use next week to review and do your second complex designs assignment, and really figure out if there's things that you need to hear or you need more explanation of. Ask those on the question and answer forums, and I'll address them in my lecture. If there are more logistical questions, I'm also happy to answer those. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and this should be up on Moodle soon.